Good morning everyone. I am Hindol Palit from the Department of English, Barakpur Rashtraguru Surendranath College. Now in today's class, I would like to talk about two basic things which is part of our English MIL syllabus for the third semester students. I will be specifically focusing on how to write a formal letter and how to write a Precis. And with my lecture, I have brought two PPT which I hope will help my students to understand my lecture better. So, I hope I will have your attention and hopefully this class will come productive for all of you. Thank you. So, in today's class, we will talk about how to write a formal letter. Now, I have brought the PPT which I think will help us to understand the structure and the format better. Now, let us first know what is the purpose of a formal letter. You can see that on the screen. First of all, the basic reason is to express your concern in the professional setup. Suppose you are working in a company or an office, you have to communicate something formally, officially to your colleagues or to your seniors. Formal letter is the best way. It provides official information across the workspace. That is one purpose. Also, suppose you are into business. Now, you are you want to a business transaction, or if you want to order some goods, you have to write the formal letter. Or maybe, I think this will come very handy for our students who are looking for a job, who are going to complete their graduation very soon and will be applying for different companies. When you apply for a different company, you need a formal letter with a certain structure. So, apply for the employment. And apart from these three, you can also find formal letter being published in the newspapers. Those letters are written to the editors, they are also formal letters. Now, about these three categories, I have made different slides and I will go one by one. So, the first one, types of formal letters. I have already talked about this: business letters, letters of application and letters to the newspapers. Now, how to write a business letter? Very basic. Use simple formal language. See, writing a letter, a formal letter is not literature. In literature, you can use fancy terms, lofty terms, okay, but not when you write a formal letter. So, use very simple and formal language. One more thing, I think this habit comes into us because of our addiction to social media. We often tend to resort to abbreviations. Now, when we are writing a formal letter, any kind of abbreviations, any form of abbreviations is a strict no. We are not supposed to write abbreviations. The tone of the letter should be very formal. There should not be no personal touches. Even if you know the person to whom you are writing the letter, then also your tone should be very formal, right? And last but not the least, the date. Always mention the date of writing the letter. The date always plays a very important role. So, this is how to write the business letter. This is how we usually structure business letter. Now, let us move on to the other one, the letters of application. Supposedly, after completing your graduation, you are going to apply for a company, right? You want to apply for a company, you want to send your CV. Now, you simply cannot just send your CV. Along with your CV, there has to be a formal letter, an application letter. So, how you are supposed to write that? Please listen to this carefully. First of all, you need to cite from which source you get the information about this vacancy. You may have learnt it from a website or from some person or from an advertisement published in a newspaper. So, at the start of the letter, you have to cite the references. Supposedly, based on the advertisement on this date in this newspaper, I would come to know about this job and here I would like to apply. So, you are citing the source. Citing the source, citing the reference is very important when it comes to the letter of application for a job. Then, what you are supposed to write in the body of the text? You write your latest qualifications. Supposedly, you just complete your graduation or post graduation. So, you simply write I, your name, have completed my graduation with this percentage of marks from that university or from that college. Now, in the letter you do not need to mention your secondary marks, your high secondary marks, that is irrelevant. In the letter, you are stating you have done your graduation or post graduation, which means you have already cleared the earlier stages. And for the detailed review of your career, you have already attached the CV. So, it is there. So, in the letter you just mention your latest qualifications, latest academic qualifications, and most importantly, if you have an experience. Supposedly, you are applying for a job of a hotel manager, right? So, you have to write that I would like to apply for this post, and for last 4 years I have been working in this hotel, and so which shows I have the experience. If you have the experience, you have to mention in the formal letter, in the body of the letter. That is also very important. Okay? And of course, your age. Okay, I am this year old. Sometimes companies are little particular about this. And once you are done writing this letter of application, it should always be followed with a CV. You always conclude a letter of application with a statement that for your better review, I am going to attach my CV along with this letter. So, first you write the application letter, then you attach the CV with it, which actually helps your boss or your employer, your future employer, to understand your career graph. Okay? So, letter should be accompanied with a CV. Now, I think this letter of application will be most important for most of you, because within a year or so you will complete your graduation and you will be out there in the job market, and you have to write lot of letter of applications. So, I am spending little more time on this, and I keep on repeating the same points, that when you write a letter of application, first cite the reference from where you get the news there vacancy, from a newspaper, from a website, from a person, just cite that. Then mention your latest academic qualifications, latest one, not the entire thing. Then if you have an experience, mention that. And then of course, you have to write that along with this, I am sending my CV for your better review. Now, when you write the letter of application, the tone has to be very formal, because you are writing a formal letter, and that letter should reflect that you are very keen, you are very interested for the job, right? That is very important, that you are looking forward, you want to have the experience for this company. So, that keenness, that enthusiasm has to be there, it has to be reflected in the letter, right? That is very important point. Okay. So, this is how you are supposed to write a letter of application. Now, next, letters to newspapers. I think some of you must have seen the editorial page often carries this letters. Now, what is the purpose of writing letters to the editors of the newspapers? The purpose is, supposedly an editorial came out in reference to that, supporting that or opposing that, you want to say, a person, a reader want to comment something or say his or her point. So, you can write a letter to the editor, that is one. Or more often than not, the tradition of writing letters to the editors comes from a concern, comes from a grievance. As a citizen, you have been troubled by a fact, you are not getting proper services, you have been plagued by certain things, something that annoys you, something that troubles you, and you have contacted local authority, but you do not find any solution. So, we want it to the fore, you want it to bring it to the fore, you want it to be known by all. So therefore, you have chosen the medium of newspaper. You are writing the letter to the editor of the newspaper, hoping that he will publish your letter so that people who are the reader of the paper, they will learn exactly what's going wrong with you, right? Now, of course, when you are writing a letter to the editor of a newspaper, you need to know what you can write and what you should not. Of course, if there is a personal problem, if something is wrong in your family, then of course, writing it in the newspaper is not the right thing to do. More often than not, as a citizen, when somebody is denied the basic rights, supposedly after a rainfall, someone's house is waterlogged for 2 days and local administration is not taking enough steps to clear out the water, then the person can write a letter to the editor. Now, you can ask me this question, when somebody is writing a letter to the editor, what is he expecting? Is he expecting the editor to come and clear the water? No, of course not. The reason of writing the letter is to let the thing know to the wider audience. Common people don't have wider audience. Okay? Nowadays, of course, we have social media, so people often write in the social media, but writing in social media is not a formal approach. So writing in the newspaper, when you write something in the newspaper, you expect that wider audience will come to know about it, they will look into the fact, and probably that will create some pressure on the administration to do the needful. So you don't really expect the editor to come out for your help. You just expect the editor to publish the letter so that it could be known by all, right? So that's very important. Now, when you are writing a letter, a formal letter to company, to newspaper, to whomsoever, please remember, no letter would be entertained without citing your name properly. Anonymous letters, if you want to hide your name, if you want to conceal your name, that won't work. Your identity, your designation is very important. Okay? So if you are writing a letter to the newspaper editor, please mention your name and address properly. Otherwise, it won't help you much. So far we have talked about 3 kinds of letters. We have talked about the formal letters, yes, formal letter, and then you have formal letter can be used in 3 different purposes: for business purpose, for job purpose, and of course for writing letters to the newspapers, right? So these 3. Now, the obvious question, I think all of you have been writing letters right from your school days, and still there are some confusions regarding the structuring of the letter, how one should structure the letter. So for your help, I make a list how you should structure the letter, and this list is followed by a sample. I think this example will help you to understand the structuring of the letter. So as you can see on the screen, everything starts from the left, right? Everything starts from the left. So at the top, you first write the address. So at the top, what will be there? Sender's address. You can see, start with sender's address, followed by date. See, 20th January 2020, followed by date. Okay. Then what you have? Then receiver's designation and receiver's address. The letter to whom you are sending, the person who is supposed to receive your letter, his name, his designation, and his address, right? What comes next? The subject of the letter. You can see subject, this word, you can bold it, okay? See that subject, water logging in the locality, as I was suggesting, okay? Subject. Then what you have? The address, the salutation, sir or ma'am, because you don't know, editor, whether he is male or female, so sir or ma'am. Then here you have the body of the text, the body, okay? Here you write your concern, okay? You can read it out, you can see that in these 3 paragraphs, you are stating who you are, why you are writing the letter, and what is your expectation from the newspaper. So this is the body of the letter, it's very important. And you can see the thanking you, it means the closing the letter. with this thanking you, you are intending to close the letter, right? And then the salutations. What salutations? The signature, you are identifying yourself, you are mentioning your name, and you also mention your position, your designation. So, this is how you should try to organize a letter. So, I repeat, it starts with the address of the sender, then the date of writing the letter, then receiver's name and address, subject matter, body of the text, the closure of the letter, thanking you, that part, and then identifying yourself, your name and your designation. This remains same in case with business letter, this remains same in case with letter to the editor, this remains same in case with when you are applying for a job opportunity. So, this much you need to know for how to write a formal letter. I hope this short lecture will come handy to understand, and please go through the slides to have better idea. Thank you. Here I would like to talk about how to write a Precis. Now, Precis, writing a Precis has always been a tricky affair. Right from your school days, you must have done Precis, and yet you were struggling a lot to cover up or to master the art of writing a Precis. So, here I make a few slides to help you understand how one should write a Precis. Please listen to me carefully. I hope this lecture, this short lecture will come handy for all of you. Now, let us first learn what is Precis writing. You will be given a passage, right? A passage or a comprehension. Now, it was expected from you that you will write a gist of the passage, a summarized version, a brief version of the entire passage. Then, when you write this summarized version of this passage, you must ensure that you mention all the essential key points. Okay? So, you are summarizing the length of the Precis, but it is your responsibility to ensure no important point should go missing. Actually, your job, your task while you are writing a Precis is to give a basic idea of what the passage says. So, just imagine you are not going to write, someone is not going to read the entire passage, the person will look into your Precis and the person will immediately understand what the Precis is all about. Say for examples, for the students of literature, now they have these big fat novels, okay, 800 pages, 900 pages novels. So, some students, when they do not find out the time to read the entire novel, ideally they should read, but if they do not read the novel, what they do, they try to find out the summary of the novel, okay. And there are many good sites, there are many good websites, they are providing solid summary. Now, those websites, when they are hiring their writers, they always ensure that as they are writing the summarized version of the novel, no important event should go missing. They are just reducing the length of the novel, but they are not supposed to miss out on any important event of the novel. So, that is precisely the job of a Precis writer. Now, of course, as a student of English MIL, you will never be given a novel, you will be given a short passage, a passage of maybe 2-3 paragraphs. So, you have to do what? You have to reduce the length of the paragraph and you have to write a Precis. But I repeat, when you write the Precis, no important point should go missing. Next, now there are some golden rules how to write a CV, how to write a Precis. First of all, the first and foremost, read the comprehension carefully. That is your golden task, the main task, to read the comprehension carefully. Read the comprehension carefully. Then, as you are reading, you are not just reading, you are also noting down the important points. Okay? That is very important. You are noting down the important points, and then you are trying to make a rough draft of the Precis. In school days, some of you used to make a box, okay, which will help you to count the word numbers. That technique can be applied, or even without applying that technique, you can still write a Precis if you maintain these basic points. First read it, then note down the important points. When you are reading, you are also noting down, and then make a rough draft. Then when you are writing the Precis, please ensure you must write the simple and precise language. Simple and precise language. And then when everything is done, when you are convinced you have covered everything, all the important points have been taken care of, you have prepared the rough draft, then you start writing the final Precis. Okay? So this is the structure. First you read, while reading, noting down the important points, prepare a rough draft, read the rough draft, decide if you have to add anything or you have to take out some portions of it, and then you think you are ready to write the final draft. Now, there are some challenges while you write the Precis. I will tell you. The length of the Precis. We are instructed not to write more than 1/3 of the entire words. What does it mean? Supposedly, there is a passage of 300 words, you are supposed to conclude it within 100 words. That's the challenge. That's what you have to do. To write an excellent Precis, you have to finish it off within 100 words. Then, since you are doing the editing portions, since you are reducing the length of the Precis, but that does not mean the Precis, reading the Precis will be a difficult job. As a writer, it is your responsibility to make the Precis reading a very convenient one. Somebody who is going to read your Precis, he or she should find it extremely easy, extremely convenient to understand what you try to write. Covering all the essential points. I think I have already told this, that your Precis, just to fit into the words, your Precis must not miss out on the important points. And therefore, I have told you, when you read the Precis for the first time, when you read the passage for the first time, please make a list of important points. Okay? Then, when you draft the final version, you can be ensured, you can be certain that no point will go missing. Okay? So, that is very important. Cover all the essential points. Your Precis should be very coherent one. Coherence means tight one. Okay. It should not come as a sporadic one, clueless ones. You understand? Sometimes what happens, people tend to pick up or pick out few words from here and there, and they try to complete Precis following the word limitations. That is fine. But just because they are picking out random lines or random phrases, it does not fit well. It does not appeal to the readers. So, you need to understand, when your reader will read the Precis, it should appear very coherent, very tight. Just reading it once, just going through it once should be enable your readers to understand what the passage is all about. Next, I think this is most challenging one. Use an appropriate title. The passage that will be given to you, passage or passages, there will be no title, or even if there is a title, you cannot use the identical title. You have to make a title of your own. Now, how to write a title? Okay. Now, that is very interesting, and of course, whether you will get a very good percentage of mark or you will get an average marking, most of this will be decided by your choice of the title. Why title matters so much? Because if your title is catchy, interesting, and also pointing towards the theme of the passage, your title is absolutely fine. Now, when you write or when you decide the title, what will be the matter of considerations? What is the passage all about? What is central thematic consideration? Don't write a random name as a title. Choose something which you think will cover the entire thematic portions of the passage, right? So, writing the title is the most interesting one. Now, the title, you can choose a word from the text that is given to you. You can choose a word from there to write a title, no harm done, you can do that. But you have to ensure that title should be poignant enough, should be clear one, so that your audience, your readers can understand immediately after looking at the title that what this passage is all about. Your title must not be misleading to its readers, right? Next, details in Precis must match the details in the passage. Now, there is a tendency, sometimes what we used to do, we used to chop some information or we used to add some information. We cannot do this. We have to stay true to the facts. We have to stay true to the facts that is already mentioned, in the main passage. So, your information, your facts should be verified alongside with the main passage. That is very important. Okay. You cannot create your own information, you cannot create your own data. Your data, your tally, your information should be same as in found in the main passage. Next, there are do's and the don'ts. Okay, I mentioned the don'ts. Do's I have already talked about. There are some don'ts when you are writing the Precis. The length of the Precis, the biggest concern. See, Precis is precise. So, sometimes I find some of the students when they write Precis, sometimes the length of the Precis is larger than the original text. Now, that is a very poor writing. Your credential as a writer of a Precis is solely dependent on the fact how smartly, how efficiently you are doing the editing and how you are writing the Precis. So, length of the Precis is of much importance. Then, do not quote lines from the text. Now, sometimes when you deal with a passage where the language is little elevated or language is enticing, sometimes it is not unnatural to feel allured, to feel driven to take a few lines from the passage because the lines are so good, but then you are not allowed to do that. You are not supposed to borrow any line, any phrase. Word you can take, but not the entire line from the text. That is a very poor way of executing or writing a Precis. Then, you cannot quote from the text. Quoting means exact replication of what is there in the text. Then of course, if you are quoting from the text, then nobody will read your Precis, the person will read the entire text. So, no quoting, no borrowing from the text. In fact, you must not even try to change the language, but write almost the same while you are writing the Precis. Be very careful about this. This is a very common problem amid the students when they almost copy everything, lines, phrases, words from the main text. This will go against you. Then, that is also very important. Do not give your opinion. When you are writing a Precis, you are not supposed to be a opinionated person. Okay. It can well be possible that some issues, you are writing the Precis on a topic which is your area of interest. That is very natural. And maybe you do not exactly agree with what the passage is stating. It can well be possible that you have a completely opposite perspective on the issue, but there you are not supposed to write your opinion. Writing Precis is not the place where people would be interested to know your opinion. I am giving an example. I think that will help you to understand. Maybe the passage is about the reservation system in job sector and in the education sector. Now, maybe what is written in the passage supporting or opposing the idea of reservation, your stance is not the same. You do not agree with the view of the passage. Now, when you will be writing the Precis, please do not show that. Nobody is interested while they are reading Precis to know your opinion. Your job, I repeat, your job is to summarize the original passage. So, please refrain from, please stay refrain from giving your own opinion. This is not the place. Nobody wants to hear what your take on the issue, right? So, no personal opinion. Then, do not focus on any point for very long. A very common problem that I find in the copies of the students. What happened? Supposedly, when they start writing a Precis, they spend too many words on one point at the start, at the beginning, and suddenly they come to the realization, oh my God, I am running out of the words, the word limit is about to go. So, suddenly they stop writing or they deduct other important points and their writing comes to an abrupt end. Now, that is a very bad example of how one should not write an Precis. When you are writing a Precis, I repeat, I am almost repeating the same thing because that is the essence, that is the soul, that is the soul of writing the Precis, that you have to cover the entire passage, not just the beginning part, not just the end part, the entire passage. So, therefore, do not linger on one particular point for very long. You have word limitations. You haven't given the infinite words to write. You have limited word. So, within that scope, within that limited scope, you have to cover up the entire thing, right. So, that is very important. Okay. Now, so this is the basic thing, and Precis writing is something, see, this is not theoretically possible, okay. I am just talking about the rules, the structure, but when it actually comes down to execute, if you really want to execute with perfection in the examinations, you have to practice it. You have to practice it, and you have to be ruthless when you are practicing. You have to count the word, okay. You have to count the word. In fact, sometimes a change of preposition, a change of an adjective, a change of an adverb often help you to cover the word limit. And this knowledge will never come to you until and unless you start practicing. With this lecture, I would try to give you an idea how you are supposed to write, but you will only learn how to write it when you actually start practicing it. I am giving you an example. Say for example, I am giving an example from a newsroom, right. Now, you know, in the newspaper, they always have a space, okay, space in the sense, you know, within the space, within that word limitations, you are supposed to cover up everything, right. A newspaper will not give you infinite space to write down everything, right. So, and there was a limitation of space for everything, for the story, for the headline, for everything. Now, as you know that European footballs happen late at night, okay. So, it was my personal experience, I have seen it, so therefore, I am sharing my experience. So, there was a match at that point of time. We all know Messi was playing for Barcelona. Now, Messi scored a hat-trick and it was almost 2 o'clock by then. So, it was almost the time to send the newspapers for print. The sports page is already covered, but still our sports editor was insisting that it is such an important piece of news that Messi has scored a hat-trick. So, we have to find some small space to fit into the story. He was insisting. So, after a lot of editing, we find a very small space almost at the bottom end of the page, and we wrote the story in a very small way without using any photograph or something. But question remains, how we are supposed to give the title? There is not even a space for more than one word. We have to write only one word for a title. Now, how can we write only one word for a title of a story, of a newspaper story? Our editor, he has come up with a thought. He give a headline, one word headline, which will help all the readers to understand what exactly happened last night. The title he has chosen, mesmerizing. Messy, mesmerizing. He did not use the word messy differently, he just used the word mesmerizing, just one word. So, this is the idea, this example I have given to you, so that you can understand when you start practicing writing Precis, you understand that how you have to deal with these word limitations. You have to be ruthless. Maybe you have a certain fondness for a word, for a phrase, for a line maybe, but you have to be ruthless to drop that. You cannot use too many adjectives, too many adverbs when you are writing a Precis. The adverbs and adjectives, they often eat out the spaces, so you have to drop them, right? So, this is something you need to learn while you are practicing. I hope in the class, when we will be doing this Precis class, we have time, we have the scope to practice it. Without practicing, you will never master it. But again, I must repeat the points that I have already talked about. First point, writing a Precis means offering a summarized version of the original paragraph. One, that is done, I have told you this. Second point, while one is doing that, he or she must ensure no important point should go missing. Everything should be covered. Number 3, while somebody is writing the Precis, the person should ensure that he is not borrowing or taking a direct line or a quotations from the text. That is strictly prohibited. Next rule, your information, I am talking about the information, and the information given in the passage should remain the same. You cannot create your own information, right? Next point, very important point, please don't give your personal opinion. You may support the issue, you may have a different take on the issue, but that is not the place to voice your opinion, right? And last but not the least, the conscious effort to stay within the word limit, because whether you write a good Precis or not, that will be decided on the fact whether you have exceeded the word limit or you manage to stay within the word limit. Now, I come to this point again, this word limit thing. You can only improve your grasp, your control over the words once you start reading more. Once you start reading more, you learn how by using one particular word, you can cover up or you can save spaces for 3 more words. Supposedly, you are supposed to write, he is looking very beautiful, right? So, instead of writing very beautiful, you can easily take away the very word, you simply write that he looks splendid, he looks beautiful, he looks handsome, that is fine. So, adverbs are not required, adjectives are not required until and unless it is a must. Now, this consciousness will only come to you once you start practicing more than once, that is most important thing, right. Last but not the least, writing Precis is a difficult job. It is not a cakewalk, it is a difficult job, and please, if you really want to know it well, if you want to master the art, the only thing that you have to do, just listening this lecture will not solve the problem. You have to you have to practice it a lot. There are a lot of examples are available in internet. If you want me to provide examples, I can provide you the examples. I can send the links where you can practice, and when you practice, you can understand how you can possibly achieve the perfection. It will not happen overnight, right? So, this is my small lecture, a short lecture on how to write Precis, and please remember, when you are writing a Precis, please remember how you should not write a Precis. The don'ts are also very important as the do's are. Thank you very much.